We would have talked last time about how these forms would be used for membership applications, event registrations, donation, sponsorship forms, partnership forms, kind of whatever else is in this, anything where you could be collecting information from your members. Together, we would have talked about how we can change the statuses here from published, unpublished, or even archived. And so over time, you're going to collect all these forms. The ones that you no longer need, you'll just want to archive those. And then if you ever want to view those archived forms, you can select this checkbox up here in the top, and it'll show you all of your forms. We also would have talked about from here, we can copy or delete forms. Of course, the second that there's a form submission on, just because we're using these forms to collect information on your members. So if you deleted that, you would also be deleting all that information that the form collected. So we just prevent that by not allowing you guys to delete it. Copying your forms is going to be your best friend, because for every event, for any type of things going on, you're going to want to make a new form for it. And so if those questions are similar, you'll just copy your form, make a couple tweaks, like the name of it, maybe revenue account, and then you'll be ready to use that. We can also edit our form, which is going to bring us into the form builder, which is where we're going to go here in just a moment. And then you can take this form. Taking this form will allow you to kind of act as if you were somebody else, act as if you're one of your members or a non-member, and take the form for them. What's great about this is it's going to hold that historical data in their profile. And so it'll show that they had a form submission in their profile when you go back into an individual's profile. Any questions so far? This all seems familiar?
Yep.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and select Form Builder. Now, we would have talked about how there are, by default, always be in the form. We talked about how that would be your login section. In this case, since this is for membership, the system brought in a membership section. We talked about how there's a summary section, a payment section, and a confirmation section. So this middle body part of the form, this is what we can really change. This could be the event section, a general section, or the membership application section. And so if this was not for event registration, if this was not, then we would just use the general section of our form. And I'm going to show you guys where you can access that general section to pull it in manually. On the left-hand column, we would have talked a little bit about some of these different tabs up here. I think we managed to make it through talking about form settings. Form settings, this has to do, whatever we're doing in here has to do with the form as a whole. So that includes the form name. If you want to add a form option, both of these are internal. So nobody else will see them but the admin. That form alias, of course, to do with the form as a whole, because whatever comes after your / and your URL is what creates the form address, web address. That form, of course, that has to do with the form as a whole. Either the whole form is published, the whole form is unpublished, or the whole form is archived. Or membership application, but for an event registration, you would probably want to use that feature. Our permissions have to do with who can even see this form. So these permissions are in the area of the form settings, which we know applies to the form as a whole. We know that if we selected these permissions, it would be, nobody, none of the people in that group would see the form. So if we unchecked prospects, that means none of your prospects would be able to see this. So if they tried to take it, it would say, sorry, you don't have permission to see this. Of course, that wouldn't make sense for the membership application, but just an example. And then we should have also talked about date-based pricing and discount codes. So both of these items will never apply to the membership application. Or these items will only apply to event registrations or to general forms. And so date-based pricing would allow you to create early bird pricing, late registration fees, and then the discount codes. Most commonly, I see this used for sponsors. A sponsor coming to one of your events, you go ahead and have them register for the event, but at the end, there's an area where they can put in some type of disc code. Usually for sponsors, my associations make it like sponsor all cap 2017. And then when they put that into the area that asks for that code, it'll at that time reflect the disc associated with using that code. Both of these items are like kind of hard to grasp or use unless we have a real life example. So you guys probably know that we have these capabilities, and so at some point when you're ready to use them, you can call into the help team and you'll say, we can use, and we just don't remember how to do it. We didn't get a chance to. Can you please walk us through that process? And then sure enough, they'll walk you right through it. Forward URL. And that just means, so once your members submit the form, traditionally the form it'll direct them back to the homepage of the website. If you want them redirected somewhere else, then you would just put that link right down here. So instead of them going back to the homepage of the website, they would end up being taken to wherever this link is. Any questions on any of these items?
No.
Okay, awesome. So now we're kind of ready to start building out pieces of the form. And so we would have also talked about how you can select properties for any of these actions. And I think we probably managed to make it through, if we click properties, you know, what that means, what are the different customizations we can make. We can also click on fields, like specific to what we can do to change those. So you can change this text if you wanted to by editing the label text. So basically anytime we select properties or fields, it's going to take the element. Basically, since this can be used for both, do you guys remember at what time, like, do you remember when the membership application can be taken by your members as a renewal form?
In your system or
Yeah.
previously?
Yeah, do you remember what we would have talked about, like at what point your members can take it as a renewal form?
Is it 30 days?
So it's actually when entered into their renewal period. And
Okay.
what enters them into the renewal period is that first notification that they receive from the system. They're not paying dues though. I keep forgetting that, right?
Correct.
So that really apply to you guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I remembered for a second. So they're not ever paying dues. So they really don't need to take a membership application. I mean, you'll have new people take the membership application, but they'll never really need to use this as a renewal form. Instead, you guys are going to send out those emails. I think we talked about you guys are going to send out emails just saying, hey, you know, do you still want to be a member with us? And then they would let you know if they didn't or did not. I know we talked about those automated notifications going out to them, and I did confirm that would have to have a $0 invoice attached to it, and it's going to automatically reflect as paid. So I think the best bet would be you guys sending out messages through the contact center saying, hey, another suggestion that I was given by my team is you guys can keep a close look on your message reporting and see, like, if anybody is unsubscribed or bounced from messages. If people start unsubscribing, then you can probably just remove them from your list, because if they're not receiving any email from you, what are they really benefiting?
Right.
Does that all make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need to worry about the renewal section. I'm sorry, I'm giving you info that you don't need. Let's go ahead and move into building out this membership application. I think this is where we got where we dropped off last time. So when you guys get ready to add a new field to your form, all you have to do is go, I want to add a form element. You're going to go to the Add Form Elements tab. Now there are a couple of different ways that we can add form elements. The first two are built and custom attributes. So way back when we did our database training, we would have talked about how you guys have 3 different types of attributes in our system. Built-in and custom attributes are 2 of those. The third was system attributes. Anytime you add a built-in or a custom attribute to our form, it's going to do one of 2 things. Either it's going to collect members' information and store it in their profile, or it's going to auto-populate their information on maybe an event registration form. Have to fill out their input that they already have on file for you guys. So that would be built-in and custom attributes. So for the member, we would probably want to add in, we've already got individual names, probably things like maybe organization, and I'm just grabbing, dragging, and dropping. And then it brings us directly to those element properties. So we might want to make this required, or maybe not required.
We do when it requires.
You do? Okay, perfect. Under add form elements, we can ask for their their physical address. Now we have preferred mailing, also have home. Do you want to ask for both of those or only one?
I think we ask for both now.
Needed.
Do you want to make the preferred mailing required? Maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And probably preferred mailing would need to be required.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I'm going to go back to add form elements. Email address is a biggie. Grabbing and dragging. Even shows us where we can drag it because that area turns green. Now it fell to the bottom. I want to bring this back up top. So I've just grabbed it again and dragged it back up. I feel like that would need to be required. Do you make the secondary available but not required as well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go back to add form elements. How about phone number?
Yes, we do ask that now.
Now we've got to work in a cell. Should these be required?
Do we do that now, Vanessa?
I don't know if it's required, but the work is always in.
So maybe make work required.
Yeah.
Back to add form elements, and now we've used physical address, name, email, organization, phone. So we've kind of touched all of the built-in attributes. Now we can go to the custom attributes. So we have title and what is your position. Do you want to add both of these?
Yes.
Should they both be required?
Yes.
It kind of makes sense to put title near or around organization to me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree? Maybe above or below?
Below is fine, yeah.
Okay.
Amber,
now
for the position, were you going to do a drop down so that it was more uniform and not just everybody entering all sorts of stuff?
I think we were going to do that, yeah, for what is your position, correct. Yeah, so how can we make that, yeah, there we go. We started putting that in. That's what I thought.
And if we make it required, it'll take. And if you'd like to continue to build this out, yeah, do you remember where you can continue to? That's okay. I like to just ask questions like that because I feel like sometimes it can help. I don't know. Sometimes it might retain knowledge. So if we get a database and attributes,
yeah, that's right.
And then we're going to come right down here. And if we go to what is your position at the bottom, these are our built-in attributes. Down below, here are our custom attributes. We're going to edit what is your position. And then you can just start to enter new selection. We can add them right in here.
Yeah, so like we had, I think we had librarian.
Librarian?
Yes.
Would you do like superintendent or principal?
Yeah.
And could we spell administrator correctly?
Actually, we'd actually, well,
What you thinking?
well, I'm thinking actually maybe not. I got to think about this for a little bit because there's so many different titles to administrator that I'm almost thinking maybe instead of breaking it out, we just do administrator. Although I really would. But I think that was it. I think if they chose administrator and then we required title, that's where we would find out what their administrative position was.
Unless they wrote it Mrs. or Mr.
Oh, so title, maybe we should put role.
Wait a minute, there's
Right.
somebody in the office. 1 second. Hold on.
Does that make sense, Adrian? I never thought about that. Title meant doctor or Mr. Yeah.
You could say occupational title or you could say role. However, and we can change this at any time. So if you, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, let's just put role for now.
I have to talk to our director who's not on site. Yeah. You can leave information for me. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Hello.
You're totally
no
fine.
problem.
I never get anybody in the office, so that was kind of spooky. I heard this man clearing his throat.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
whoa, okay. All right, I'm sorry. Yes. Roll.
Awesome. We've got roll. And we can change this again, y'all. We're not fixed to this. So, and that's the cool about our product is even if your members are like, this is confusing, or you start getting membership applications filled out and you're like, this is not what we were trying to collect on them, then we can always come in here and change it again. So these are kind of all the fields that we want to add. And you'll notice anytime there's a head, that means that it's going to collect it and store it in the member's profile, which is kind of cool. Now, if we go back to add form elements, there's two more tabs that we haven't been through. Form fields and presentation. Form fields, so the big difference is anytime we use a form field, that is not going to collect the information and save it in the member's profile. It will only save it in the form submission itself. Simple examples, if you're having a luncheon, what kind of sandwich do you want for our upcoming luncheon? Turkey, ham, veggie. You don't need to know that in 2017, at your luncheon in October, Bob had a turkey sandwich at the luncheon, right? You don't need to know that in his profile forever, ever, and ever. You needed to know that for that specific event so you could get counts on food. So in that case, we would use a form field to ask that question. Another example would be anytime you want to add a monetary value. So maybe you're having an event and the event costs $25. You don't need to know in their profile stored forever and ever, ever that they paid $25 for this event or whatever it may be. Instead, you really just need it for the form submission to create the invoice. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's you would use these form fields. Now, a lot of these are intuitive. Country literally just gives you a drop down of countries to choose from. Now, we would want to update the label name. So maybe the example would be, where would you like to have this year's conference? Now, you'll notice anytime that we change the label, we will always want to update the export name. The reason why is because we have the ability to export all of our form submissions. And when we look at them in the Excel file that we've exported, the export name is going to be the column information. So if we had left it at country, we don't really know what that information means on the Excel file. So that's why we always need to update it. Does that make sense? Then we've just got some others that are, same, pretty intuitive. Date means they would just put in a date or time. A file gives them the like maybe their headshot. I'm going to skip over these two. We're going to come back to them. Number and selection set. State's just a drop down of state. Text just gives them a blank text box so they can write anything in that they want to. So those are all pretty intuitive. Now there's something special about number and selection set. We can use these fields to collect money on our form. So what that means is, let's say, we're going to say, how many tickets do you need? And they could put in, of course, just a number of how many tickets they need, but toggles that says price field. If we turn that on, all of a sudden now this has to do with money. Unit here. Maybe each ticket's $50. That's going to reflect on the form. So whatever number they put in here is going to multiply it by 50, and it's a full line item on the invoice as well as the total for the invoice. Can you guys think of real life examples that you might use this?
Yeah. Our doctor events, or we have some smaller events that, or I mean, next year we could use it for our conference, right? Or that would be something.
That's exactly what you could do. Now, you may not necessarily need them to be timed something. You may just have a straight, like, the best example I can provide is for a donation. It's not going to be times anything. It's an option here, currency input. Now, instead of saying how many tickets you need, we could say, how much will you be donating? And they can just put in however much they want to donate. So it's just like a blank money field, so they can give you any amount of money that they want to. Now, anytime that you're using a field on a form that has to do with money, you're always going to want to select this Edit Payment Processor and Revenue Account. You're always going to see this button somewhere. This is super important, y'all. The reason why is because you'll need to select your payment processor. You change this invoice line item is how the item is going to read on the invoice. So it doesn't make sense to say how many tickets do you need or to donate. Instead, it makes sense to say ticket amount total or donation total, because it's the line item on the invoice. Does that make sense?
Right.
Account. If you do not, this is just going to end up in a general account, which will give you no way of tracking the money. So that's a biggie. Now, I also mentioned that under our form fields, there was another special one. We just looked at number. Now we're going to look at selection set. Same thing here. Now, this is how you can create a selection set similar to the what position do you have? Similar to that, it gives them options to choose from. But we can also use this as a money amount. So we could say, are you coming to this year's conference? And then we can make this a price field. So there's that price field toggle again. Now when we add selections, options, and base prices, so we're going to select this add selections. And the answer could be either yes or it could be no. Now here, if they say yes, maybe the ticket was $100. Or you could even say yes, like you could say yes, I am registering myself. Or it could be yes, I am registering maybe the guest price is $250, like $75. And then obviously if they select no, there wouldn't be a price associated. This limit column over here, maybe you only have 100 chairs available at the conference. So if somebody registers, the 100th person who registers, then this selection will go away. So it kind of allows you to put a limit on how many people can register for these things. Did that make sense?
It does.
Awesome. Awesome. So that covers everything into the form field. So the biggie things to take away from this is to have a money amount on the field. Always make sure you're using selection set and number. And then you'll always need to make sure you specify. So if I go back in here, there's always make sure that this is filled out. There's a little preview down here that says none. There's no revenue account. So you'll always need to go in here and make sure you select one. Now, the only other thing that we need to walk through is the presentation items. So we've looked at built-in attributes, custom attributes, form fields. Presentation items are pretty simple. It totally is just how does this form present itself. I mentioned time when you create a form, if you remember, it has a couple different checkboxes you can choose from. Is this form used for a membership application? Is it used for an event registration? Is it used for both? Is it used for? In this case, if we're using this as an event, or if we forgot to say that we're using this for an event, we can always just grab our event section in. Now we have the event section as part of our form. Same thing with the general section. You can just grab and drag general section in. Now we don't need these for this form, so if we made a mistake, if you click properties for a section or go to the bottom, and you'll always be able to delete it out on the left-hand side. That's how you can manually add in different sections. There's also some other items, a horizontal line. This is literally just a horizontal line. It can be used for a separator. A label, this is going to be any type of text, basically, y'all. So if you needed to add in directions or instructions, you could use a text box, a label to do that and just edit the label text. Page break, right down here at the bottom, these are usually automated. They're already in the form itself. But if you were, had a really long survey form, so after a conference you wanted to send a survey to all the people that attended, maybe they're manually after every 5 questions, so they're not scrolling on the same page, but instead they're able to navigate from page. And then lastly, white space. This is just a white space. Another separator. And that's kind of everything on the forms. Anything you're still curious about or have any questions on?
I don't think so.
Well, so since we finished up, I'm going to go ahead and stop